2012. 2012, question number 7, part 1. Define and give an example of each of the following categories of goods and services. How many marks? 6 marks. So in your head, how it would have broken down? 2 marks each. So 2 marks each. Then they are also asking define an example. So most likely maybe what they would have done is, right, maybe 1.5 mark for the definition, maybe half a mark for the example, or maybe 1 mark for the definition, 1 mark for the definition, 1 mark for the example. Either way. So now we are not 100% sure on how they would have given marks. Then how do you write? You write a definition that suits 1.5 marks. You write an example for 1 mark. Whatever way they have given marks, you get your full mark. Right? That's how you plan. Okay. So what is a global public good, guys? A global public good is also a public good. That means it's non-rival, non-excludable. So your answer should mention non-rival, non-excludable. In addition to mentioning non-rival and non-excludable, what else should you have on top of this? You should also say benefits of these goods, right? Benefits of these goods, okay, of these goods are what? You can say are distributed globally, or are received by, are received, or you can say the whole world benefits from global public goods. So you can say benefits of these goods are, I'll say, distributed globally. So distributed globally means, guys, everyone in the globe gets benefited. So can you give me some examples? What can I give in as examples here? World peace, okay. World peace, protecting the ozone layer, okay. Wikipedia, fine, okay. Protecting the ozone layer, maybe even let's say financial stability, because remember, if the global warming is not really example, maybe taking any measures to prevent against global warming, yes, because global warming is a bad thing. Okay, so protecting the, now even ozone layer is wrong, Lama. If you say something like protecting the ozone layer preservation, that is correct. Don't just write nonsense. Don't just say ozone layer. Ozone layer is not a global public good. Maybe you can consider, but more the correct would be preservation of the ozone layer. Okay, and you can even give things like financial stability, Lamai. So if the especially if the US economy is stable, all the other economies will also be stable. Financial stability. Okay, then Lamai, number part B. What do you write here? Common property resources. Common resources. Again, what are common resources? You need to say common resources are resources that are non-excludable. They are non-excludable. However, they are rival. So things like what? Things like fisheries, things like, for example, grasslands. Okay, all of those are what we call common resources. So your definition, guys, doesn't have to be anything big. You can say common resources are the resources that are, you can say, freely available to the public. In other words, they are non-excludable. However, they are rival in consumption. Enough. Example, fisheries, grasslands. Maybe give 2 examples. Then the last one, quasi-public goods, semi-public goods. What are semi-public goods? Semi-public goods are the goods that are non-rival. Okay, they are non-rival, but however, they are excludable. They are non-rival, but excludable. So you can say semi-public goods are the goods that are non-rival, however, they are excludable. For example, you can give things like a national museum, you can give things like highways, and you can write your answer. Is all natural resources common resources? Not all, but most. Should we include that? Yes, you can say non-rival until it reaches capacity. No problem. You can be more specific like that as well. Okay. So, Lamai, these questions, please don't lose marks. Huh? These are easy ones that you can score. Remember our target, basic target. The once our target is 95 and up, you can have a different plan. But basic, if you want to get a Lamai, you have to get 15 marks. 15 out of 20, no? So these kind of questions from your you have to get 6. That means from the rest you have to get to another 9. If you can get 5 questions 15 each, you get 75, and then if you do your MCQs and get around 37 38 correct, A is sorted. So at least to get a A, it should not be hard. Then part 2. Distinguish between statutory tax incidence and economic tax incidence. What is statutory tax incidence, Lamai? Statutory tax incidence is who is legally required to pay. Statutory tax incidence. Okay, so statutory tax incidence. Now, statute means law. Statute means law. So, statutory tax incidence means when a tax is imposed, who is legally responsible to pay. That is what you call legally responsible to pay. So for example, let's say government came and told me, or said, every student that you're teaching, you have to pay a 500 rupee tax. So if this tax is not paid, who is going to jail? Am I the one going to jail, or are you the one going to jail? I am the one going to jail, no? If this tax is not paid. So I am the one legally responsible of paying this. So government comes and says, look here, pay 500 rupees for every student that you are teaching. Okay. Then let's say, Lamai, what is economic tax incidence? Economic tax incidence is because of the tax, right? Because of the tax, whose real income is affected. Whose real income is affected. Now let's say, Lamai, okay, government put a 500 rupee tax on me. They said per student are said you have to pay a 500 rupee tax, and then I don't do anything. I will not even pass it on to you. I will itself pay 500 for every student that I have. So then the economic tax incidence is on whom then? If I itself go and pay it, I don't increase the class fees, so I don't do anything. Government put a tax on me 500 per student. I itself now go and happily pay it. Fine. So then the economic tax incidence is on me, right? But what if I tell you, look here students, me mara vade, right? You know, Ranil came and put a tax like this per student. They have told me to charge pay a tax of 500. So now let's say if your class fees is 3000 a month, I am saying, look here students, from next month onwards, our class fee will be 3500. So what happened there? Statutory tax incidence is on me. I am the one legally responsible of paying the tax. But is it my real income that was affected? Was the economic tax incidence on me? No, right? The economic tax incidence, I pass it on to the student then. Because why? I increased your class fees. I told you, look here, now class fees is 3500, not 3000. So I passed on 500 to you. So then Lama, you can also go a little bit in detail. Yes, can you tell me about a direct tax? In a direct tax, is the statutory tax incidence and the economic tax incidence, can it be on two different people? Direct taxes like income tax. In a direct tax, Lamai, who is legally responsible of paying is the person who actually ends up paying also. Now just think, how does personal income tax work? Personal income tax is deducted at source. That means you don't have to now, every person doesn't have to go to the tax department and pay Lamai. From your salary, let's say your salary is 100,000, automatically that will get deducted only and come to your bank account. So if your salary is 100,000, let's say, after deducting tax, you will get 90,000 to your bank account. You will not get 100,000. You don't have to go to a line and pay the 10,000. Automatically deducted. So legally, you're the one responsible to pay that also. And your income is the one that is affected also. You're only getting 90,000. You're the one getting 10,000 less. So when it's a direct tax, Lamai, You can say both of these are the same, right? I'll just say same here, right? Statutory and this. But in terms of when it's an indirect tax, okay, it can be different. Indirect tax doesn't mean it always has to be different. Indirect tax can be different. The party that the tax is legally imposed on, he can transfer it to the other person. Not that he will definitely transfer. Now, for example, government says 500 rupee tax per student I am teaching. If I want, I can increase your class fee and transfer it to you. If I want, I itself can bear it. So if I itself bear the indirect tax, then statutory and economic tax incidence is on me. If I increase your class fees and tell you, that means the economic is on you. So indirect, right? For the indirect tax, it can be the same or it can even be different. The economic tax incidence and the statutory tax incidence can be on different people or can even be on the same person. No rule saying that it has to be on a different person. Yes, the ability to shift a tax depends on what? Now, when let's say government puts a 500 tax on me, whether I pass this on completely to you or not depends on what? Something we learn in unit number 2 and 3. Depends on the elasticity, no? Remember, if you're if you're, okay, let's say, Lamai, if your demand is inelastic, what will I do? If I realize that your demand is inelastic, I realize that no matter what, you will still come for my class because now A levels is near, right? Class is very important. No matter what, you will somehow come. What will I do? Will I bear the tax or will I put it on you? If I know your demand is inelastic. If I know your demand is inelastic, I'll put it on you, no? That's econ. I know that even they will pay, if they will even pay 3,500 then come. But if I think that you are highly elastic, if I feel there are so many other econ teachers, very close substitutes, if I increase the price, you all will soon leave my class and go. What will I then do? If I feel that your demand is elastic, I will not put it on you. I will rather bear the tax, or maybe I'll bear most of the tax. I will say, okay, I will maybe increase classes by 100 rupees, 400 rupees I will bear. See, that's based on elasticity only. You can figure out how you can transfer. See, that's economics in practice. Is that fine, guys? Statutory and economic incidence. Shape. Okay. Then we'll go to question 3. Now, what is meant? How to word this, guys? So for 2 marks, you talk about statutory tax incidence. For 2 marks, talk about economic tax incidence. The notes are there in the tutor. Whatever that I explain, you put it onto your own words. That again is what you have to practice, guys. Because I know, like, even I'll tell you this, right? Even when I was doing A levels, I am really bad at memorizing stuff. I honestly can't memorize stuff, but I can logically understand stuff. But then logically understanding and putting it into writing is 2 different things. I know this, but then when I go to write, I sometimes struggle. So you have to keep writing, guys. The more and more you write only, you will know how to put your thoughts into words. So mock papers, past papers are must, guys. Now also I get so many messages from students, and even I've seen this on that WhatsApp group that you all are there, right? So many fellows send different questions, but most of them have not even done the past paper. So past papers, Lamai, that is the proper standard paper. No mistakes. Answers are also there. Past papers, if you have done all the past papers, then do this that model paper, this school paper, that school paper, North Province paper, this province paper, fine. But without doing that, please don't go to that, guys. You all are wasting time in vain. Because if you all do that and if you all don't have time later to do the past papers, you are such a fool. So past papers, if you have done, first you will do 2011 to 22. Make sure these 10 papers are properly done. If you're done with that, Lama, even do from 2000. Right? Those papers are also there, 2000 to 2010. If you can do from 2000 to 2022, that is 23 papers, Lama. That has everything. Trust me, it has 90% of what you're going to get. And in addition that, if you are part of my mock exam, we do the most toughest questions there also. Should be more than enough. Don't waste time. If you have done all of this, then go and do this FMG paper, that paper, this paper, fine. But without doing it, don't go there, Lamai. just a waste, because those questions, there are so many mistakes. Sometimes you all will see the translation is like, ayo, I don't know who translate those papers. Translation, it's complete wrong. Okay, it doesn't make sense at all. Sometimes the whole economic terms have been completely different from one to another. So this first, then go and do that, no problem. Anything is fine. Any paper that you do, guys, has to be a proper standard, and also you have to have a marking scheme. There is no point doing 1,000 questions if you won't mark it and learn from it. So if you don't have a marking scheme, usually don't do that paper, because you won't really learn from it. How do you know whether your answer is right or wrong? So make sure that is that. Even past papers alone is more than enough, Lamai. I'll tell you that. You still can get a really good result with past papers alone. Then part 3. What is meant by neutrality of taxation? What is neutrality? This is a principle of taxation. Only for 2 marks they're asking, so we don't have to explain a lot. Neutrality of taxation means that when a tax is imposed, it should not affect the decision making of the consumer or the producer. It should what? Not affect, when a tax is imposed, it should not affect the decision making. The decision making of the economic party. So let's say consumer or producer, right? It should not affect the decision making. Now, what does that mean? That means now, for example, Lamai, when a tax is put, the supplier should not reduce his supply. He should still continue supplying the same amount. Now, for example, my previous one, government puts a 500 rupee tax for me on students. I should not reduce my number of students now. I should still supply my classes to the same number of students I have been doing. Then only we call it a neutral tax. Let's say government puts a tax on, let's say, biscuit. So I should not stop consuming it. I should be still consuming the same amount of biscuits. Then we say the tax is neutral. Now, why is this important? The broader meaning of this is, Lamai, when the supply decreases, or if the demand now we don't talk about taxes on consumer. In our syllabus, just think unit number 3. We talk about taxes on producers. So when the supply decreases, Lamai, it creates a dead weight loss neither. Remember, there is this triangle that gets created, a dead weight loss gets created. So they are saying, if a tax is neutral, it will not create a dead weight loss. How? Because if a tax is neutral, supply won't reduce its supply. No? It won't affect the decision making. No? So that is your point that you need to highlight. You don't have to go into that detail. You can say a tax that is neutral is a tax that does not affect the decision making of an economic party. In other words, if a tax is put on a supplier, it will not result in him reducing his supply. And also, if you want, you can expand and say, as a result of a neutral tax, a dead weight loss will not be created. Because when you put a tax, and if the supply shifts only, my dead weight loss is created. If the supply doesn't shift, there is no dead weight loss. So in a neutral tax, there should not be a dead weight loss. So for 2 marks, you don't have to go that in detail. If you write the basic story, it's more than enough. Is that fine? Neutrality of taxation. Okay. We'll go to 4. Distinguish between primary deficit and net cash deficit. So for 2 marks, you need to write what is a primary deficit. For 2 marks, you will write what is a net cash deficit. So what is the primary deficit, Lamai? Primary deficit, you can say, is the overall budget balance. Overall budget balance, excluding interest payments. Excluding interest payments. Or you can go in detail and say the primary account balance is the difference between total government revenue including grants and total government expenditure excluding interest payment. Difference between, right now, see the equation I am writing in word format. Equation is primary balance is total government revenue including grants minus total government expenditure excluding interest payment. But how do I convert that into words? I say primary account balances The difference between that word, the difference between what? The difference between total revenue including grants, and total expenditure excluding interest payments. See, if you can write that, Lamai, more than enough. 2 marks you will get. Then what is this? Net cash deficit. Maravadi. What does this mean? Is net cash deficit is it's the overall balance plus interest payment. Yes. The deductive in the guide. In the guide they will deduct because maybe it would have been a deficit. It would have been a minus. That's why they are now, for example, if the deficit is 100, okay, if your deficit is 100, if your overall deficit is 100, if you want to get your primary account deficit, then you minus this. Let's say tax interest is 20, then you get your primary account deficit is only 80, because this is the deficit, this is the negative number. So ideally your equation is overall balance plus interest payment. So your now if your overall deficit is 100, that means your overall balance is a minus 100, and then you add back the interest payment, you get the primary deficit of minus 80. So that's why it would have been added unless they made a mistake. Total expenditure excluding interest payment exceed the total revenue including grant. Yes, that's a primary deficit. If the expenditure excluding interest payments is more than the revenue including. Yes. Okay. Then net cash deficit, Lamai. Net cash deficit is what? Net cash deficit is the difference between total government receipts. Total government receipts and minus total government expenditure excluding what, Lamai? Excluding repayment of loans. That is what you call amortization payments, excluding repayment of loans. So that is your net cash deficit. From your now remember, when you talk about repayment loans, the installment. So installment will have the capital and the interest component. Okay. So when you talk about net cash deficit, we are talking about that in a cash basis. Now, for example, the others, overall balance and all, those are on an accrual basis. Now you say in overall balance, you say tax revenue. You say tax revenue 100 million. But that 100 million might have not still been received in cash, because some companies, they will pay their tax next year. But on an accrual basis, remember, for accounting, that is that year's tax. So you say tax revenue 100 million. But actually they have not got 100 million. Actually they have got only, for example, let's say 80 million. So you can also say, my primary deficit is calculated on a accrual basis, right? So that doesn't mean all the cash has been received. But when you calculate net cash deficit, this is on a cash basis. So this is only the cash inflow and the cash outflow. Okay, you can highlight that as well when you're differentiating. Is that okay? No, net cash deficit doesn't always have to be greater than the primary deficit. It can be lesser as well. Okay, so 2 marks, 2 marks. Done. Then we'll go to the last. Okay, identify major non-tax revenue sources of the government of Sri Lanka. You can easily get this from the central bank report. What are the non-tax revenue sources, Lama? We'll just have a look. Where is this? Do I have the unit with me? They might have actual numbers also. You see, these are the main ones. You see, non-tax revenue, or these have to be in your answer. Property income. Okay, now you see, if you look at in 22 and all, property income, fees and charges. Okay, so those are the two main ones that are there. Everything else is under other. So what are the other? We'll talk. Okay, you don't have to talk about the percentage of GDP, not needed. So property income and fees and charges definitely has to be there in your answer. Those are the main ones. Okay, non-tax revenue 2022. Property income. So government has property nilamai. So this they might have given those property on rent and property income, and then fees and charges. So they have nilamai license fees, renewal of this one, passport renewal, different stuff are there. No? Those are called fees and charges. Okay. So apart from this, what else lamai? These are the main two. No? What are the ones that come under other? You can talk about even lamai interest. Okay, so interest income, right? Government might have invested on certain things. The national lottery, okay, that is also a government source of income. The national lottery. Social security, not really income for them, right? That's not their money. No, they are collecting it, but don't write it as income. Profits you can give, yes. Profits and dividends. Profits and dividends. So profits may be ideally from state-owned enterprises. Privatization proceeds, okay, but we have not privatized for a long time. So so it's not really one. Privatization proceeds also should be an untaxed revenue. So, but after 2006 or something, we have not privatized Lamai. Now only we are talking about privatizing again. So still, even the ones that we are planning on privatizing, we haven't sold it yet. Maybe in the next year they might sell it. So privatizing, don't write, because we have not really got it for the last 10-15 years. We haven't privatized it. But it is an untaxed source, correct? What else? Maybe we can give anything that I missed. You can also charge, yes, maybe these fines and penalties, right? Okay, all of those also is okay. Sale of assets is what we call privatization. I will say not to include, because we have not sold any assets recently for the last 10-15 years. So I'll just put it over here, right? Sale of assets, or in other words, we call it privatization of state assets. Privatization. We have not got any money recently, so don't include that. Okay, that's part 5. Property income can be rent income, but then even, for example, giving on leases and all can all come into this. Property income is mainly rentals. Okay, done. How was that paper shape? Manageable? Not bad, no? Compared to what you all study and what you all do here, it's not that hard.